Well, great to be together again. This is the second in our case studies with some of the key churches around the world. Michael here, obviously from Leaderscape, and I'm delighted today to be joined by one of my very close friends and lead pastor of one of my hero churches, to be really honest, River Valley Church up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Hey, Pastor Rodling, how are you?
We are doing good. Every day has been a roller coaster, but you caught me on a really good day.
Put that razor blade away. No, it's like that, isn't it? It really, because of the shifting sands of this whole thing, just as we think we've got a strategy, then we've got to pivot again.
Yes, it's been. We were saying the other day, I don't even know where true north is. It feels like we're going this way, and then they say this way, and so we've just had to learn to be ready on a moment's notice and stay connected constantly.
Let me just take you back to, 7 days when this thing all started to break. Just to give people a context, you've got a church of 10 on a weekend, 9 campuses, I think, some beautiful facilities, do things excellent, but without losing that real people. There's a depth and a warmth. There's a vibrancy. I think, one of the things I'd characterize River Valley is just a spirit of life right through the place. Incredible next ministry, really authentic care for people on all sides. So you got a whole lot of good stuff going on, great momentum. And so this thing hits. How do you as a lead pastor process that, Pastor Rob?
I mean, as soon as it hit, we didn't have much notice, and I don't mind crisis. So I just jumped into crisis mode and said, I'm making the call. We're going digital. We're not going to try to go this way. We're actually going to jump 2 steps ahead. And so I was trying to get ahead of the problem is the way I was processing it. Like, all right, if we're here and it moved here, let's try to jump here. And then I just immediately started empowering team and realizing that if I was going to just control it all, we were in trouble. So I was like, run. Everybody run. And in those moments, you want to be high on forgiveness, high on action, and reward initiative. And you realize it's going to change so fast that if anybody makes a mistake, we can pivot real quick. So just empower people to go was my mentality.
Wow. Did you build a kind of a room? Is there a group that really are helping to guide and shift that you're working with and kind of connecting with very regularly to be able to allow you to pivot quickly?
Yeah, we have our directional leadership team, which Caleb is on, and there's a group of us, less than a half dozen, and we just meet every day virtually at 10 o'clock now, but it's that group, and it was just basically run, go, do something, come back, huddle up, what'd you do, change that, fix this, that's awesome, tell everybody this because it worked, and then it was like, what's next? And then go. And it felt like every day had at least 1 iteration, maybe 2 every day. So there was it was just, everything was fluid. It was like adapt. And there was a book, The Starfish and the Spider, that I read years ago. And it was like, the spider loses its legs and becomes paralyzed. The starfish gets cut in half and becomes 2 starfish. And the whole concept was stop doing command and control, think multiply, think sell, think empowerment. And if you do that, you won't be in trouble. But if it's command and control, you're in trouble. So we just were all starfish, go, multiply, try, share the best practices. And we probably overdid it. I don't know, Caleb, you could weigh in on that, but it felt like we were communicating in every medium and over communicating.
Caleb Brooks, who runs your River Valley network, among other things, is a thinker, great strategist. What's your reflection as one of Pastor Rob's key direct leadership team members?
Yeah, I think you hit it. You have to be ready to pivot on everything. As soon as you think you have a great plan, there's a new announcement and all your plans mean nothing. And so we've pivoted probably 24 times on different strategies over the last week and a half. Seriously, I mean, it's not an over exaggeration. And so, yeah, we're looking at, okay, what's working and getting real-time feedback. Is this working? Is this not working? Why is it not working? And I think you're right, Pastor Rob. We communicated, but I'd rather over communicate in this time than under communicate because things are changing so fast. So we're communicating Slack, we're doing virtual calls like we've never done as a staff. We've done multiple calls where it's a virtual all staff, over 100 people on a call at the same time, just doing live updates. And so it's been important. It's been important to stay connected, to stay updated because things are changing so fast. You can't just assume that people are in the know. You have to know that they're in the know.
Right.
So yeah, we've been learning lots of things that we've been learning, and we'll probably change it more as we go.
I'll come back to you in a moment, Caleb, in terms of just the big rocks. If you can think about a couple of big rocks that you're working through right now. Pastor Rob, just broadening out from River Valley for a moment, you're also one of the churches among the 13,000 US AG churches, and churches from large house group size, 30 people through to yourself and a couple of others that lead the way. Getting any feedback from guys around the country at various looking out at this new era? What are you hearing?
Everybody that didn't have it in place was worried, how are we going to get our content out? And that was only one part of the strategy. So we already had the content ready with online. So that wasn't as much of a fear, but we were like, how are we going to package the content, but we could get it out? So I had people like buying cameras, setting up studios, people meeting in schools that were told they couldn't meet. So there was content. And then it was like, how are we going to get care? And then it was, how are we going to survive, like financially? So all these worlds were going on. And then it was, how do we offer hope? And then you couldn't even offer hope in your traditional way, which would be like to go meet with people and to offer care and to be chaplain. You were like a handcuffed chaplain that had to now become high tech, that had to figure out how to care for your people and wondered if they were still going to give and if you could stay open. And then you have all your personal stuff that were going on. So everybody kind of went into like, it was almost like a panic, but nobody knew if we should run or not. And so nobody panicked. It was kind of like, should we panic? And because nobody panicked, it felt like everybody was like, okay, here's what we have. And then people just started, it felt like open source, like software open source. Everybody was giving ideas constantly. Yeah. So you weren't starving for ideas. So it actually felt really good.
It's kind of, there's a new kingdom dynamic that seems to be happening around the place at the moment that is particularly encouraging. Caleb, just divide the thought processes into two, three, or four buckets. What are the big rocks strategically that you have been considering?
Great. Yeah. And Pastor Rob talked about it. Some of the things that initially with the crisis, we're looking at care. And so how do we actually care for people, especially in new ways? And so we're looking at care and connection, especially with isolation. That doesn't mean you can't have connection. And so we're trying to think through, okay, what are the innovative ways that we can build more connection for people, even in isolation? So connection and care are the big one. I can break that down a little bit for what we're doing. Yep. And then the other one was the digital engagement. More than just creating content, how do we have people engage with that content? And is it really content that's making us feel good, or is it meeting needs in people's lives? And are they even having time to engage with it? It's calendars are upside down, kids are at home. And so we're looking at, okay, we can create all this amazing content, but people, if they don't have the right time and ability to access it, it means nothing. We're just spinning our wheels. Yeah. And so we're looking at, okay, looking at the weekend, what does that actually look like? How do we learn from data? How do we learn from engagement, live trends, live engagement, and see what's meeting that need? We still kind of need a rally point as a church. And so we're still doing that weekend content. But we're also looking at, okay, how do we record things for kids? So we've created like studios at some of our buildings where we'll just go in and Our Go Kids seems amazing. They'll pump out 30 videos in a morning of just like kids dance videos. But then we'll upload them onto YouTube, and it's not a live thing. It's just content that then kids and families can go access whenever they're available. Because again, it has to be accessible for people. So different ministries are thinking that way of, okay, what's content that's maybe a bit more evergreen, that's less live and more accessible when people want it to be. But also you don't want to be tone deaf with everything that's going on. And so we're thinking of, okay, what are different products that we can produce that meet people with where they're at and address the crisis authentically and real. And so we've built a couple of different products that are more conversation based and talking about things that are going on right now. But it's that balance, right? You have to look at, okay, what's content that people can access whenever, and what's things that maybe if they just watched this 15-minute video and it'll never be seen again, but doesn't meet people where they're at right now. And so that's a very general kind of overview of our digital engagement. And then for care and connection, we wanted to, it was a goal. What if we could reach out to every single person in our church in this time? So everyone who calls River Valley Church home, and for us, that's, I mean, almost 18,000 family units. And so it was, okay, what does that actually look like to give all of those 18,000 families a phone call from a live person? And so we broke down essentially like a sales call list of, okay, let's identify audiences. Let's look at what are those needs in those audiences so we can know who we're talking to, and then break it down. So all of our pastors became essentially digital sales call pastors.
Pastoral care.
Exactly.
Everyone. That's amazing.
And people were shocked, Michael. They were shocked because they're like, I can't believe a mega church would call me personally. And we just went relational. I said, people need to connect and know that we're there and we have their data. So we're calling, and they've done it.
Wow. That's amazing. Is that an ongoing thing or a once-off, or what's the plan there, Pastor Rob?
I don't know that answer. Caleb might, but I think it was an initial surge, and then we're going to assess based on what are people telling us. And what we were surprised at, they weren't asking for help. They were saying, how can I help? Matter of fact, in our sermon this weekend, like in the weekend service, we said, if you need help or want to help, please get a hold of this number or this website. And 250 people responded. 85% said, I want to help, not that they needed help.
Amazing.
So it's so we're assessing, like, do we need to make another phone call now, or should we wait a little longer?
Right.
And that's what's cool too, Michael. So as we're doing those calls, everyone on staff is filling out forms that we're collecting real-time data. And so from that, then we can have actionable steps of, because we don't know. I mean, you're hearing a lot that people are in need, but we don't know what those needs necessarily are. And so as
no one needed toilet paper, did they? No one needed toilet paper except for Caleb Rose.
And that's optional, right? It's amazing. I'll come back to you in a minute, Caleb, about analytics. And without getting too, I mean, there'll be people, thousands of pastors watching this from, my dog just crept across the back. This is live, folks. Family.
All good.
This is home. This is working from home. He's my new partner in the ministry as we help the nations. But no, analytics, you're getting pastors watching this who've got thousands of people and who've got 80 people. And so if you can be thinking the kind of we need to measure right now. So have a think about that. I want to bring your executive pastor, Pastor Rob, Chris Brook. Chris, again, strategic. You've got obviously a lot of the spinning plates. We'll come back to you in a moment, Chris. How are you doing, my friend? And what's been your thought processes as we've really moved into this new era, this new reality right now?
Yeah, we're doing really well. I jumped on this a little bit late, just getting dinner ready for the kids. No, I know we've already talked about it a little bit, but it's just a hard pivot about 2 weeks ago. What was amazing about 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, we reorged, and then 2 days later, all this hit. And so my focus became less about being the guy bringing the ideas, which that's probably not my strength naturally anyways, and more empowering the 5 people that work on our teams to actually make all these ideas happen. So what was incredible to watch was one guy, Darren Lee, he's our communications director. He kind of rose to the top right away, like within hours, had a strategy digitally worked out. And then all the other thoroughbreds that we had on the team just began to support him, just began to say, what do you need me to do? Then I'm going to take this idea. I'm going to move to the left here. I'm going to take this idea and move to the right there. And I became more about coordinating what was happening as opposed to having to drive necessarily what happened. And it's been a fun, at times stressful, but really it's been a fun 2.5 weeks. It has. It's not been without its challenges, but to see this team gel, it's been amazing. We've got a great team.
That's amazing. Come back to you, Pastor Rob. Any insights about either what's come out of the care? You called every one of, you didn't personally, but the team called every one of the 18,000 families in life of the church, family units, and from them. And secondly, because that's where a lot of guys are now thinking. They're now online. Yep. We got up there. I've spoken to pastors who tried 3 times. Their first times failed, and they finally got on 3rd attempt. So a lot of them are over that hump now, and they're thinking, okay, how do we actually engage people? Any thoughts on that come to mind, Pastor Rob?
Yeah, I mean, our thing was I wanted to use the digital world to show that we were real people and that everybody could be our friend through digital. And so I said, create content, forget about it being high professional. And before other people were saying low tech is the new high tech, I was like, scrap the highly produced, give them relationship, let people see you're real, do your devotions with them. Like they are connecting like nothing else. I said, every kids pastor, do a VBS from your home with your children acting out the stuff. Like do a science experiment with what's in your wife's, cabinet there, do something, have fun with this and just create and connect. And then I personally said, the content we're going to throw out on the weekend, we're scrapping the sermon series. We're going to go right to where people are. Yeah. And it was like, pivot to what's now. And how many pastors did Psalm 91? I mean, I said, I'm doing Psalm 91. And then I did Isaiah 43. I said, when we're in it, we're going through it. This is not our forever. He promises to be with us in escalating problems of deep water, raging rivers, and fire. And then now I'm pivoting again this week. I've got 3 choices for sermon. I still haven't figured out what I'm doing, but I'm preaching on Thursday. And then the last thing that I was going to say on this is we decided not to make it feel like a living room church. Now, some people can't help it. You have to go with what you have, but we're allowed to at least drive in and record sermons. America has said recording the sermons is essential service. And so I wanted to make it not church in your living room, but I wanted to make it church without you, that we miss you. And I think there's a different feel. One could say, you're a home church, and mine was, you're at home for church. And I hope that makes sense.
That's a really good distinction. And I think that'll help a lot of guys to think that through, because everyone's wondering, there are some that just stuck a camera in the pulpit and preached like they always would. I don't think that's going to work. I think others who went right living room, and for some will work. And others, I hear what you're saying. It's kind of an in-between where you really, you may be going hard, core, intimate, connection, authentic, vulnerable, to really connect with their hearts, but still your pulpit, still with a little mini worship set and so forth. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, that's completely it. And so we did a couple changes. We shortened the service, shortened the sermon, and put worship at the end. So it basically starts with like, hey, welcome, church is different. Here's the updates. Here's what we're thinking. Here's what you need to know to be taken care of. Here's the sermon, and it's shorter. And then we're going to end with worship. Let's just focus on Jesus and get our eyes on him. And so that flipped from the way we did church, which was, welcome to church. Here's worship. Here's what you need to know. Here's the sermon. here's the altar call. I mean, we basically flipped the church going digital.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, for us moving forward, I think it's pretty simple. It's how do we, a month from now, we got to be thinking about what's happening 5 or 6 weeks from now. So it's not just getting us through this hump. So we're just, now the next conversation begins to be, how do we integrate digital into what we're doing? We've all had these dreams for a while, and now this is just kind of forcing us to answer that question. So now it becomes, do we do digital alongside? How do we do digital alongside so that we don't hurt the in-church experience, and that we want to seed that while going to where people are at. So that's becoming the next part of the conversation for us, and an exciting part of the conversation.
That's really, really. What I'd like to unpack, and again, we'll come back to those metric and measurements in a moment, Caleb, but is just because the engagement and connectivity, I don't think anyone is going to have trouble. It would not surprise me if we talked and you get 50,000 of your program. You might already be there right now. That for very few is going to be the issue. People darken the door of an online set much quicker than they'll darken the door of being whose roof hasn't been reinforced, if you know what I'm saying. Like that, and the same thing will empower a troll to speak vile things and just shoot cowboy-like fashion in behind the anonymity of that. That same thing flipped positively will allow people to check in to church in an anonymous fashion. That's not the problem. The real issue becomes, how do we engage in order to be able to help be positioned in even an early form of community, so we're able to build a virtual relationship with them. Any one of you, if you've got something you want to add to that, because I really think a lot of people are asking that question right now. How have you guys addressed that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Michael. It's something that we're looking at right now. And I think if you can rely on some great platforms, especially in the online world right now, platforms like Church Online, platforms like Facebook, what we've utilized is we've scheduled digital pastors. So every service that we host online has a host pastor who's manning the chat bar. And they're praying for people live. They're giving actionable steps. They're putting links in there. And so and I'll talk about a church lobby after this too, but we're really owning that chat space, because that's the connection point. As much as you can make it dialogue and not monologue, especially in an online space, that's the goal. And so a lot of our pastors will do a virtual church lobby where they'll hop on Instagram Live 15 minutes prior to the streaming service and ask lobby questions, and just connect with people, and then say, hey, we're walking into church. They'll sign off and go right into that live moment. And so, a lot of connection there.
Yeah, I love that. And then even post, I know any kind of small groups that all post the service, we're happening inside of that, where you do Zoom, ask questions, get them engaging for 20 minutes, an hour after the actual service itself. Is that something that you guys have got into yet, or is it down or what?
Yeah, so it's kind of going campus to campus. We don't necessarily have a direct follow-up from our services, but one of the first things that we did was make it available for all of our life groups to join online. And so equipping people with Zoom or with Google Hangout or Google Meet, there's a lot of free options out there, and equipping people and putting it right in front of them, saying, hey, join this, like we're doing life group digital tonight. And so there's still lots of ways to do it.
Anything else from you or Pastor Rob?
I looked at this, and when I got done preaching the first week and I realized we were all digital, I just looked at the team and I said, we're going to reach neighbors and nations digitally. Yeah. And it blew my mind. Like, we're going to reach neighbors and nations. Like, we're saying, come to us. And now the church is going to them. And so I've said, we're going to reach neighbors and nations digitally, but we're going to be the church together. And I use the word together instead of live, because I think there's digital value in being the church, but I also think it's a together, and the together is going to mean we're going to get together. And I was worried that this experiment might make the church not want to come to gather together. I think it's going to be the opposite. I think this is going to cause people to want to come together because it was taken away from them. They see the value of it, and they're like, okay, digital is going to be my supplement, and it might be a way I reach my neighbor, but it's not going to replace being on mission together.
That's cool. Can I echo that real quick, Michael? When we started having this digital conversation, probably 18 to 24 months ago now, we did a little bit of research on that. We talked to a lot of churches who are ahead of us digital, and almost to a church, they all said when you invest in your digital platforms, time, talent, treasure, all of it, it actually sees what's happening actually on your campus. And so the fear that people have that the more we go digital, the less connection people are going to have. Anecdotally speaking, so far, most churches are not seeing that happen. Most churches are actually seeing there are people who are going once a month, starting to go twice a month, 3 months. It's just the routine and the volume of their church attendance is actually increasing the more we invest in those digital platforms. So it's been that's how we've been experiencing it so far, and so we're all in.
So great. One of the things that a lot of pastors are asking right now is how we measure Monday, Tuesday, how we measure how we're doing, like the analytics, or a little more friendly, the metrics, the how do we know we've done a good job, basically. Kayla, can you?
Yeah. So it's what we're looking at right now. I mean, we had multiple meetings on it today, just looking at what does it actually look like to measure success. So if you look at traditional ways of measuring success, you're looking at tithe and offering, you're looking at attendance. And so what does that look like when attendance isn't as black and white? Because we're playing our weekend on multiple platforms, we're looking at, okay, what's a real engagement? Does 10 seconds on Facebook count as attendance, or does it not? And so we're trying to look at, okay, how many engagement points have people had on the different platforms? And then also thinking about, it might be one device, but it could be 10 people watching that device, or 5 people watching that device as a family. So there's different things that we're learning from the data as we look week over week, and that we're going to continue to learn from. Because if you're just playing your weekend service on Facebook, your numbers feel great. You feel like you're reaching the world, but it's somebody scrolling past it on their newsfeed, so it's not true engagement. Right. So the numbers will lie to you a little bit. And so what we're trying to figure out as a team right now is, what are true numbers? What's truly successful? And then looking at the different platforms, we're thinking more almost like a TV broadcasting than we are a church right now. So if you're looking at, okay, we record the weekend message, but that stays on YouTube or that stays on Facebook throughout the week, do all of those views throughout the week count for weekend attendance? TV broadcasting would be kind of the day plus 7. So they're looking at, what is that week of viewership? So that's some of the things that we're looking at. And then we're also obviously measuring giving as well, and looking at, okay, what are the trends on giving? What are the trends on engagement in all of our different sectors? We're looking at
Let me jump in on that.
Yeah, jump in.
Let me jump in on giving. Michael, we had talked earlier, after week 1 of the shutdown in America and the crisis, our giving fell off 10%. It was actually 4.1% down from the previous year. And this week, our giving was up. Our tithing was up over last year. And we're in the second weekend of digital lockdown, essentially. And to me, that goes back, the thought I had on that was, you raise a great teenager by winning the battle when they're kids. And I think if you're wondering if you're going to survive financially now, it's probably because you had discipleship earlier, and you're going to see the results in your giving right now. You can't all of a sudden create a giving campaign in a global crisis. You either have disciples that are doing it, or they're not. And the only thing I will say is, we did a very soft appeal on offering. I probably one of the softest I've ever done. And I just basically said, we understand many of you are uncertain about your job. Many of you had no income this week. We are not asking you to give because you have nothing right now. We want you to take care of your needs. Those of you that kept your jobs, those of you that are salaried that can do this, that are disciples, please know this is a time we need your gift. And the tithe actually went up. And so to me, that was just a huge win. And then apart from the money, I'll say this, I'm noticing that I can get digital, how we call it, digital visitation. As a senior pastor, if I texted people after the service and said, what did you think? They would think it was stupid prior to the digital world that we're in.
Yeah.
Now I do it. It's like digital visitation. And they're like, glad you asked. I loved worship at the end, you know, and I'm getting like digital visitation, and they're giving me the permission to see how engaged they are and what they like about it.
That's fantastic. Just before we leave the financial side, because obviously a lot of lead pastors, that's you know, from uncertainty to terror through to hopeful, you know, would be, you know, all in the one bag. Are there any things that you're doing, Pastor Rob? Because I know that Kingdom Builders, your global missions heart is legendary, releasing, you know, $6.5 million for that each year. Are there any things that you're doing just to particularly get around some of those key Kingdom Builders right now, who in some cases their businesses, their jobs, if they're senior executives, you know, there's a degree of, you know, the market's down, there's a degree of uncertainty there.
Yeah, I have, those have been the people that I've been texting. Obviously I'm in their world. So I'm texting them, how are you guys weathering this? What are you thinking? What's going on? So that's been positive, just to stay in their world. I think the other thing that was interesting is I've assured them that we're not taking $1 of missions money away from the missionaries. The missionaries will get the money, and we are not going to budget on their money. I don't care how short it gets. We'll make other cuts. I've let them know that I'm a good leader, that I don't have like Pollyanna, like I'm not ignoring this. I'm, you know, because they want to know, am I a leader or am I just asking for a bailout? And I've told them, hey, we're going to, you know, look at measures of not doing anything in retirement match, not asking, but a cut across the board so that we don't have to lay staff off. We've cut all of our budgets 90%. And the budget in every department is only 10% of what it was at this moment. And so I'm letting them know my leadership decisions that are financial, and then also checking in on them, how they're doing financially. And I think that's been huge. And then when they hear me assure them, like, we're given to missions and doing that, those are the things that they want to hear, that we're not panicking in this crisis and abandoning principle. If you abandon principle in a crisis, you didn't really have principle. And so we're living by the principle in the crisis. And to them, they go, this is a leader I can follow. And then the last thing I want to say, just so that people know this, the current stimulus that America is doing, not everybody's doing this, but you know, I know you have listeners all around the world. Yeah. But each country will do something different. But because we lobbied with our representatives, they went in and included churches in the small business loan. And if this comes out right, churches could petition for 2.5 months of salary to be paid by the government. And if you use it for salary, it's a grant, not a loan. If you use it for other things, it'll become a 2.5% interest loan. But I just want to alert people to be aware of this. Look for it. Don't let that slip you by. It's the first time in history that they've allowed that, and they've raised the giving amounts. So I don't know if other countries, well, you guys don't have it, Michael, but maybe Australia could petition that in the crisis for 1 year, you could write off the money you could give to churches. I don't know. I mean,
I think that's amazing. And in fact, I've got to say thank you. I had an incredible conversation with Steve Cheney Associates, who is your CFO, but also helps to run the finances for 600 plus churches in 28 states around the US. And he alerted us, and again, particularly the US, folks here that this opportunity does exist. It's real. I don't know whether it had been enacted or that it was about to be. There was a bit of wrangling going on at Congress. It was $1 trillion.
They still haven't voted.
Oh my God!
It's close.
$2 trillion ish, and so you need to check that out. In fact, Steve said that if you wanted to reach out to his office, if you're watching this, and you are, you can see the full interview I did with Steve in the Lead Pastors Momentum Central. That's a closed space just for Lead Pastors. So if you're not already in there, get in there. And obviously in our Leaderscape Momentum space, our closed group for those involved in our Leaderscape family. But check out that whole interview, and it's great to Pastor Rob for passing on that intel. So that could be a real help. Imagine having a huge slab of your salary for your workers paid. He talked about obviously facilities being a huge one. Talk to the banks, talk to landlords. If you're renting, go to interest only. So facilities is a huge package. Staff is another huge package. And obviously as nonprofits, we really want to hold on to our staff as much as we can. Do what we can. And so that even, I think in America, nonprofit employees can't get the unemployment benefits, or there's a delay or something like that.
They don't get anything.
They don't get anything. So it's this is a real lifeline to churches. And then of course, you guys have got the increase in tax deductibility of giving, which is a great blessing as well. Caleb, come back to those stats again. Sorry, I just want to revisit that just for a minute. And I know you haven't landed it yet. What might you be thinking? So we can agree right now that though it's exhilarating to look at the views, understanding that many of those might be 3 seconds. Is there any way of knowing that? And so if we say, because I know that in Facebook advertising, you can get, if someone's been on for 50%. Now that could really count a genuine kind of deal. So are the platforms or even Facebook giving any insights like that? Secondly, what are some of the engagement numbers? And like I said, not to put you on the spot, you might be working through this, that we should be thinking about. And then I'll give you guys a final chance to have a chat of anything that's on your heart, and then I'll get out of your hair. But can you just unpack that a little bit more? What is your thinking? What's your process of your thought at the moment?
Yeah, so I mean, the first things first, gather all the data points that you can. A good summary of data starts with a good collection of data.
Which are what? What would be the numbers? And again, people at all different levels here, what would be some of the ones that you're needing to do?
So right now we stream so I'll just talk about weekend services right now. Right now we stream our weekend service on Church Online platform, Facebook, YouTube, and through our app. And so for Church Online, we're looking at total unique viewers. And a lot of these platforms will deliver these stats for you. So we're looking at unique viewers, we're looking at total time attended, and then we'll do an average time attended. We'll also collect how many messages were sent in the chat bar. Church Online measures salvations and next steps as well, so we'll measure that. For Facebook, we'll do the same thing. We'll look at unique viewers, we'll look at estimated reach, we'll look at average watch time, the total minutes viewed, comments, shares, reactions. So we'll gather all of that. YouTube the same, playbacks, and then how we've started delineating that data is, okay, we'll look at what's a sample size. So if we're saying that a total time attended, we might divide that by unique viewers or unique attenders and figure out, okay, what's that actual time that's attended? If we kind of have a sample size of, we're saying 15 minutes is the goal attended, because Pastor Rob was talking about it, we changed our service order because of the data. The first week that we just kind of did a normal service, you could watch the engagement drop off at the end. As soon as he was finishing up his message, you just watched engagement drop off. So we said, okay, what if we put worship at the end and tell people that it's coming at the end? So that way they're engaged with the entire beginning half of the message, knowing that worship is coming. And that way we get them for a longer period of time. So again, those are kind of some of the things that we're looking at. Unique viewers is a good one to look at. Average time is a good one to look at. How long are people engaging with the content? That's a pretty broad overview, but again,
that's great.
As much as you
Have
can
you got
gather.
any feel for that yet? Obviously, it's only a couple of weeks, but any feel for, what it's looking like for you on a large sample size?
You want the numbers for us?
No, not the actual numbers, but the percentage of, if 50,000 or whatever it is connected, then when you pair that back in the initial purview of this is what it's looking like, what's it appearing to look like at the moment?
Yeah. Best practice for us, anything under an hour is good for a service. The shorter, the better. When you look at Facebook average watch time, it's in the 20 seconds. It's in the 10 seconds, which is super short. Now, if you look at a platform like Church Online, because people are going there for the service, it's going to be a higher length of time that's engaged. But even that, average watch time for that was less than 20 minutes. If you're looking at YouTube, again, you have to be thinking about what are people going towards. They're going to a platform for a specific reason, especially for something like Church Online and even YouTube. Facebook, they might run into it on accident, but it's still worth to play it there because your reach is wider. So for us, we're looking at the average watch time right now for almost all of our platforms is right around that 20-minute mark. And for us, we're playing services Saturday, 4, 5, 6, and 7 p.m. And then Sunday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every hour on the hour.
Wow.
So it's something that we started doing. The first week, we actually then continued that throughout the week at 7 p.m. Saw very little engagement on those weeknight services. So we cut those the second week. And now we're looking at, okay, what are the service times that people are engaging with most? The first week, it was kind of the normal service times. People engaged at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Second week, we had pretty good engagement in the middle of the afternoon. Because again, people's schedules are upside down. And so when there's more options to engage, they're going to.
Very good. Very good. Any final thoughts, Rob, either of reflections, maybe pivots, and even a word down the camera to pastors that are really scrambling right now in this new world?
Yeah, I mean, my thing is I've just taken the role of I've got to bring confidence and hope and let people know that I'm alert. I know everything. I know what's going on out here, and you guys can know what's going on here, but I do know what's going on out here, and we're going somewhere. And I told my staff today, I said, like, the real work starts when this is over, because we were not made as a very good church to chill. We were made as a church to run fast. And I said, the real work's going to start there. Everybody's going to be rebuilding, and so are we. Everybody's going to be trying to grab a hold of opportunities, and so are we. Everybody's going to be like, just doing everything they can, running 100 miles an hour. I said 200 miles an hour today. And I said, we can't complain. You cannot complain. Like, once we're running, it's like, you got to go fast. You got to grab it while you can and get back into the flow once this is over, because it'll pass. I mean, this is not, if you study historic plagues and whatnot, this one will not be anywhere near some of the ones that were catastrophic in history, but we're treating it like it's the worst ever. But in the 50s, we had way worse, plagues going on. And of course, going way back, there were extreme plagues. So I think we're gonna have to come out of this, and it's gonna end, and we're gonna have to go 200 miles an hour and get going and get back to speed again. And when we do, don't complain. Be grateful that we get to minister to those people.
So great. So great. You really are a hero, church, and I believe that God is going to use you. I was saying this to Julian Lowe this morning, who's the lead pastor of Oasis Church. He's only been leading that thing properly for about 4 or 5 months, and I'm like, well, wow. You know, and they're doing great. They're also finances are up, and just got some real prophetic innovation. I believe that God's going to raise up some Josephs in this season that will help feed the body of Christ, Pastor Rob, and I believe that definitely God is positioning you like that. I know it's very much your heart, not just for River Valley, but Kingdom. And on behalf of all of those that watch and glean a whole bunch out of it, I just want to say a big thank you to you and the team members there. Let's stick through and encourage each other, and not only going to see it through, I believe that God is going to use this as there's a dog, as a time of real increase, even recalibration in certain things, where Ephesians 4:11 will become reality, not something that we preach and teach.
Right.
So good.
Thank you so much, Pastor Rob. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Caleb. We will obviously be in touch very, very soon. And God bless you. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks.
Thanks, Michael.